Right.
So, maybe so.
Beautiful Shabbat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very nice.
Thank you for being there.
Of course, of course. I think I'm gonna head to the Fabora. Brooklyn this weekend. There's a big vulture of Fabora.
Big what?
Vulture of Fabora.
Right.
You know about
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yes, yes.
You know what's the rabbi's name again?
Eisenberger.
Yes, that's right. Yes. I haven't been there. They told me.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
what should I expect for Mitzvah?
Morning, Nathan. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on Chafei Amabet 25B, 25B1. The bottom of the first column, Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Rabbi Shmuel says, the Mishnah says, Ema likim be'itron. You can't use itron. I think many people translate itron like tar. You can't use it as a fuel for Shabbat candles. Now, what's the problem? Why can't I use it? It burns the light is a nice light. What's the issue? The Gemara says the issue is, but it has a bad smell. Because it has a bad smell, Amar Rava. So Rava says, my time, I'm Rava Mitol Sherich, because it has a bad smell. Zera Shema Yanichena V'Yetzeh. There's a concern that a person will go ahead and leave it. He'll leave the candles because he'll light the candles. And what's the problem? He'll light the candles and he'll leave the candles because there's a bad smell. So that's the issue. So the Gemara says, Abaye says, Amalei Abaye V'Yetzeh. So what about if he leaves one assignment? So if he leaves the room, so let him leave, so to speak. So he leaves the room, he'll go eat, and he'll eat in another room. So what's the big concern? He lit the Shabbat candles. He lit the Shabbat candles in honor of Shabbat. So what's the problem if he goes ahead and you're afraid that he might leave. So if he does leave, so he still had the Shabbat candles in honor of the Shabbat. He might not have used them, but he had them. So the Gemara says no, because you're supposed to eat by the Shabbat candles. Sha'an Amalei. So Rava says to Abaye, you know what? Because Sha'ani Omer had looked at the Shabbat Chovah. The responsibility of lighting the candles in the way Tosfot says is Chovah, is an obligation to light the Shabbat candles in the place of the Sudah. In the place where you're eating, that's where the Shabbat candles are supposed to be, because you're supposed to have a meal where there is light. And Tosfot says Mishum Oneg, because that's enjoyable. It's enjoyable when you have lights in front of you. I mean, Rashi says because the honor of Shabbat, because an important meal is you have it in the place. An important meal you have where there's light, just like daytime. You know, an important meal you don't have in a place where it's dark, right? So therefore, it's the kavod, it's the honor of Shabbat to have the lights there. So in Reish Samach Gimel, Sif Bet in the Shulchan Aruch, he says the following. He says Reish Samach Gimel, Sif Bet. He says that men and women are obligated to light, but here he doesn't seem to. He's not focusing on this point by the table. It says Aleph, but I don't see a focus on it. But okay, so that's what the Gemara says. The Amar Rav Nachman bar Zavda, Rav Nachman bar Rava, Rav Nachman bar Zavda. Some say Rav Nachman, the son of Rava, said the name of Rav. Look at Ner b'Shabbat Chova. The obligation of lighting on Ner on Shabbat, which the Gemara is interpreting, is by the table where you eat, is a Chova. However, Rechitzat yadayim v'raglayim b'chamim arvit mishut. The washing of the hands and the feet in hot water in honor of the Shabbat. This opinion says it's a reshut. It's not an obligation. This opinion says it's optional. Washing your hands and your feet in hot water in honor of Shabbat. And Vani Omer, and I say the rabbi says that mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to go ahead and wash your hands and your feet with hot water in honor of Shabbat. So in the Shulchan Aruch, let's see the Shulchan Aruch on this one, the Siman Reish Samach Sif Aleph. Let's see how he quotes this halacha. Sif Aleph says mitzvah is a mitzvah to wash. Now it's interesting, the language of the Shulchan Aruch and the language of the Ramah. The Ashkenaz rabbi puts in to wash your whole body. And if you can't do your whole body, you should wash your face, because the language of the Shulchan Aruch is your face, your hands, your feet with hot water. And that's a mitzvah to wash your face, your hands, feet with hot water. And it's a mitzvah to to shampoo your head and to cut your nails on Erev Shabbat. Right, warm water is most probably you're enjoying it more. The cover honor the morning Adam, in honor of the Shabbat, it's more pleasurable. It's more, so maybe that makes it also maybe deeper clean. And that's what Adam says, deeper clean, and therefore the Shulchan Aruch says that. So that you have that mitzvah on, and Rashi and the Chafetz Chaim says, it's a kavod Shabbat. It's this mitzvah of taking a shower, washing yourself every Friday is a honor of Shabbat, and if you fulfill that, you're going to get a great reward for that. But there was issues in Europe. The people that he spoke about, that you have to be careful not to come to violate the Shabbat, because what was the issue in Europe? Because when the days were short and they heated up the bathhouses, to make sure you're not heating up the bathhouses on the Shabbat, because some people are staying in the bathhouse, close to dark, and might be after sunset, and therefore you get into all issues. So Jewish owned, Jewish run, right, in the neighborhood, right, in the little shtetl, in the little neighborhood. So that's, and he speaks about other issues of you have to be
Well,
careful.
aren't they closed on? They have to close on Shabbat.
They have to close it. Some people are staying a little late in their short days. People might be staying a little late, and then he talks about even if they finished the washing, you have to be careful not to squeeze out the towels from the water that was absorbed. They have to, other issues that they have to be careful about. So therefore, and he says that women also have this mitzvah of, before Shabbat, honor of Shabbat, taking a shower. And mikveh, you might not be cleaning yourself well by going to the mikveh. Really, people clean themselves. You should take your shower before you go to the mikveh, because the mikveh is not really, because you want to take off any sweat and all that. You should do that before you enter. The men should do that before they enter. Go into the mikveh, you're supposed to take the shower beforehand. Now, so the Gemara says that Tosfos points out that we find this phenomenon that we know. It says Mayim Achronim Chova, right? There's a lot of people like to use. It says that by a meal, you're supposed to. Good morning, Nathan. You're supposed to go ahead and say a Dvar Torah at a meal, As a lot of people like to use that three-word halacha, Simon. Mayim achronim chova, which means that at the end of a meal, you had a bread meal, you should wash your hands before you go ahead and say Birkat HaMazon. Now, originally, that was one of the main reasons for that was there was certain salt that came from Sodom that was, if you had it on your hands, it was, and you touch your eyes, it was dangerous. That was one of the reasons why they used to wash the hands after the meal, before you say Birkat HaMazon. Today, we don't really have that salt so much. Therefore, there are some people in the Ashkenaz community that are more lenient about that. The Shulchan Aruch still states, Mayim Achronim Chova, the Mechaber of Yosef Karo, the Sephardi rabbi, says, Mayim Achronim Chova. Even Ashkenaz community, it's definitely suggested, and it's a nice thing, it's a great thing to do. For sure, if your hands are dirty, you ate some greasy foods, your hands are dirty, you would have to wash your hands. Point to everybody before you say Birkat HaMazon, because you have to say Birkat HaMazon with clean. Your hands can't be dirty. It's not respectful. Your hands are dirty, and you can say the bracha, say Birkat HaMazon. But uses the word chovah, obligatory by Mayim Achronim. It's called the afterwaters, and it also uses the word chovah here. This opinion that says, with a Gemara that says, Rava, usually the law follows Rava, that lighting the candles by, where Tosfos learns, by the Sudah, by the Mokum Sudah is a chovah, is an obligation. So they're both referred to as chovah, as obligation, and yet Tosfos says, but don't equate them regarding bracha. Meaning, before you do Mayim Achronim, or when you do Mayim Achronim, you do not say a blessing regarding Mayim Achronim. You say a blessing before you wash your hands to eat bread, you say the blessing. And a lot of people make a mistake. I like to point out, people should remember, you wash your hands before you eat the bread, you say the bracha, and then you dry your hands. Don't wash, dry, and then say the bracha while you're drying. Right, Mark, we spoke about that, correct? I think we must have made, can't be that we didn't mention that. You have to make sure, a lot of people make the mistake. And I don't want to blame anybody for this mistake, but I'm afraid that when 25 kids come together in kindergarten, the table, you got to find out in Shari Torah what they do. But if 25 kids come together in kindergarten and they wash their hands from motzi, so it's hard to imagine that the teacher is going to wait to say, everyone hold their hands wet, then we'll say the blessing. So I'm afraid that many kids dry their hands, and then they say the blessing, and they get used to it when they're kids. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's where the problem began. But there are people have to make sure you say the blessing before you dry your hands. But getting back to the point here is, even though in both places it says chovah, uses the same language, but there's a great difference between lighting Shabbat candles and washing your hands for Mayim Achronim. One, you say a bracha, the women say a bracha when they light the candles. If there's no lady lighting the candles, the men light the candles. A lot of people don't realize that the mitzvah is not just on the woman, it's on the men as well, but women get first crack at it. But if a man is a single man, supposed to light candles for Shabbat, and a person's traveling, is to light candles for Shabbat, but even though they use the same word chovah, Simon, it's obligatory. One, you have to say a bracha when you light the candles for Shabbat, and Mayim Achronim, Tosfos points out, does not need a bracha. So that is regarding that. And Vani Omer. Okay, so we have over here, so Rava, so we have the language that comes from Halokas Levashav Chovah, Bechitzes Yadayim Raglayim B'Shachamim Avid B'Shud, meaning we have an opinion that says washing your hands and feet for Shabbat is a B'Shud, it's just optional. Vani Omer, and I say it's a mitzvah. Washing your hands and your feet in honor of Shabbat is a mitzvah. But people have to remember, even though it's a mitzvah, which maybe we could take out from Chofetz Chaim, the guy is running late, and he wants to take a hot shower, and you can't take a hot shower on Shabbat. You can't take a hot shower, putting on the hot water, causing the fire to heat up water on Shabbat. So people can't play around with that when it's getting close to sunset here. You're going to be finished before sunset or whatever, a couple of minutes before you are fine. But people have to in honor of the Shabbat, you don't desecrate the Shabbat. In honor of the Shabbat, taking a shower for Shabbat, better skip the shower, the Shabbat, than the Chas v'Sholom desecrate the Shabbat. Like it's also brought down, if a lady's running a little late and she can't play around with the time of lighting the candles, better she should light the candles and she's not dressed in her fine regal Shabbat clothing. Let her light the candles without being the Shabbat clothing and light at the right time, and then to go ahead and to get close, possibly desecrating the Shabbat by lighting the candles after sunset. So, and now the Gemara illustrates something this point over here about this mitzvah.
Is the 59 minute already too late, or is the 59 minute also?
So let's understand. Let's give the case. What time is candlelight, right? So let's say 7:40. So then you have 18 minutes till 7:58. Once 7:58 hits, that means that 18 minutes have passed, right? Again, if you count 7:40, if you count 7:40 to 7:58, you see then you're
It's the end of the minute, not the beginning of 7.
right. It's 18 minutes to the end of 18 minutes,
So
right?
that means if I say that I can go to the end of 7:59 is the problem, not 7:58.
But you're saying only 18 minutes are fully passed only at 7:59.
End of 7. Not the
Let-
beginning of 7.
Let's try to do a little math over here. If we do it the other way, if we do 7:50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57. No, Mark, look, let's take a look. It's a mistake. Let's look. Because you forget 7:50, the beginning of 7:40. 7:40 means candlelighting is 7:40 in 0 seconds. 7:40. Now, 7:40 is 1. That's what you're missing, Mark. 7:40 is 1 minute. 7:40, you have to count to 0, Mark. You can't.
It's all 7. When the clock strikes 7:40.
No, again, when the clock strikes 7:40,
Really,
it's
the question.
right, but let's
And then go back 18
right,
minutes.
but let's do it this way. If candlelighting is 7:40, that means 7:40 and 0 seconds begins the 18 minutes.
7:58 and 0. You don't have to count.
The-
7:58 and 0.
Exactly.
Well, my question is when
Yeah, so 7:50.
geologists really know with certainty that sundown is 7:58. Is it the beginning of 7:58?
The beginning of
or the end
it's the beginning of 7:58. Again, it could, yes, I'll tell you like this, Mark. Yes, when sundown is 7.
Yeah, what do you hope? The beginning.
Yeah, it's beginning, Mr. Mark. Because now, why do they? Meaning, if they say technically, Nathan, if they say sundown at 7:58, it could be sundown at 7:58 in 10 seconds. Could be 7:58 in 5 seconds. They say 7:58 because that's the closest number.
But it's also
It's possible.
safer.
Right, safer. It's possible it's 7:58 in 20 seconds,
It could
but
be
it's
7:58 in 50 seconds.
and it could be but it could be 7:58 in 0 seconds too.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But so no one should play around with that, Mark. That's what I want to say.
So when
No.
it hits 58,
Eight,
the
and
bell rings go off.
Right, because that might
You
be.
don't have-
You don't have
Yeah,
50. Right, now, but technically, right, exactly. That's for sure. You don't have that whole minute. That we already said, because you're already 18 minutes plus. Right, the math we did is 18 minutes plus. So therefore, okay.
Is it included in the last minute?
It can't be, Mark, it can't be. It's 19.
You said before, you have to be safe.
Right, that's it.
Right, but people should not think, okay, in the back of their mind, I might have 30 seconds. No, we don't. I'm afraid of that. The rabbis, I'm afraid of that. You got to be careful. But again, remember emotion. I hope not. Now, Ramosha Feinstein has a tshuva, as a letter where he says, remember, it's not only till sun. It's not that you have 18 minutes technically to do work because you're supposed to add to the Shabbat. And now the question is how much you need to add to the Shabbat, but that's a matter of question. But I would say 2 minutes. Everybody should add. I think it's a very good habit to tell to your house, to your family members. We have to stop. We should try very hard to stop at 2 minutes before sunset. It doesn't mean that if you have 1 minute and 45 seconds, that I think you might have a little bit more wiggly room in that. But you don't have any wiggly, there's no any wiggly room once it's 18 minutes. You get what I'm saying? Because technically, Tosfot Shabbat, adding Shabbat would mean any amount that you added. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's no any amount after sunset. There's no any amount. But that's what I would say. Okay. Now, and the Gemara illustrates this about this mitzvah of. By the way, it's a whole. The Chafetz Chaim gives a whole new outlook towards this because of he says a guy's running. He says this is there's certain things that you do. Most things in life, when it comes to Judaism, most things I think is a mitzvah. When you say mitzvah, you have to do it. If you don't do it, there's a punishment for that. A guy doesn't put on tefillin, right? There's a punishment. A guy doesn't pray. There's reward and there's punishment. But he says this mitzvah of taking a shower in honor of Shabbat doesn't fall into that category. He says if you go in and you take a shower before Shabbat, you're going to get reward, and that's what you're supposed to do. But if you but if you don't do it for whatever the situation is, you're not getting punished for not taking that shower before Shabbat. And I think he wants to bring that in because of his what was going on in Europe. That's why he's emphasizing that point, because people shouldn't get carried away with this mitzvah and lead to a sin with the heating up of the bathhouses. He said, and exceedingly so much you have to be careful. You shouldn't come through the mitzvah of washing to chashash chilul Shabbat. And then he says, "Avonotenu harabim." Now, great sins. We're on 25b. Harbe nichsholam b'zeh. Many people, he says, stumble on this during the winter months when the days are short and they're in there they're there almost until dark. And even if they finish even if they finish the bath, there's other things they're doing afterwards that are problematic. So therefore, people have to be careful about that. So now the Gemara brings a beautiful story to illustrate the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Yehuda says in the name of Rav, we're on the bottom of 25b1. Kachayi minhago shel Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. The minhag of Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, the Erev Shabbat, on Erev Shabbat, mevi'in lo areva melei chamin. They brought him a pot full of hot water. And rochet panav yadav raglov, and he washed his hands, his feet, and his face in it. And it's interesting to note that the Shulchan Aruch mentions hands, feet, and face. He does the Mechaber of Yosef Karo. He doesn't mention the whole body. And I presume he's going with this language of this Gemara. The Ashkenaz Rabbi Ramoth throws in the whole body if you're able to. Okay. And Umedatev, and he wrapped himself up. B'yoshev b'sadinin hamitziyotzin. He had a cloak, like a robe of something that was made out of linen, and it had tzitzit. V'domeh l'malach Hashem tzvokot. He resembled like a holy angel, so to speak. And right, to go greet, right? And now we have a big chidush over here.
This cloak was not in the bathhouse. This is how he left the bathhouse.
This is how after he washed himself. It doesn't say he went to the bathhouse, because here they only brought him a pot of water, hot water. They brought a pot of.
Did he wear this cloak out to greet the Sabbath?
Yes. And Right. This was his. This was his clothing.
This was a kaput.
Because it's a kapata made out of. But what's here? What's interesting? With
Linen.
linen, the
With
garment was like
woolen
linen
tzitzit.
with
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 woolen
woolen with chelet. So he wore the chelet, the string, the wool string, with the dye of the blue dye. So that now we have a situation of shatnez, because if you have a linen garment and you have tied to it woolen tzitzit, the shatnez. So why was he doing that?
There's no exemption for tzitzit.
As Nathan says, there's something called asay dochel lo taseh. There's a positive commandment to put on tzitzit. There's a lo taseh. There's a Torah says don't wear shatnez. But when they're in conflict, when an asay, when a positive commandment goes against a lo taseh, and the lo taseh, the don't, does not carry with it karet, a death penalty. Carries with it lashes, right? The person who wears shatnez carries with it lashes. So the mitzvah aseh, the positive commandment of tzitzit, and part of the mitzvah of tzitzit is to put on chelet. That's part of the. It's another. Besides to have one of the strings being the blue dye. So the mitzvah of tzitzit overpowers the lo taseh of shatnez. Right. You can't make avon to make a mitzvah, but when you have, but that's if the rules of a positive commandment, a lot of don't apply to not get.
We do a brit on Shabbat.
Say it again.
The brit on Shabbat. The positive is the brit, and the negative.
Right.
Don't
But there the Torah itself tells you b'yom hashmini. There the Torah tells you openly on the day b'yom and the 8th day, even on Shabbat. We have, right, but Mark is saying, there's an extra drasha, right? It doesn't say openly, as open as I said. It means an extra word, and the rabbi teaches us you could do it even on Shabbat. Mark is saying we have an independent prohibition, and here we have an independent mitzvah. So now, so what now? The laws. So if I have a right for the mitzvah if the rules work, there is a rule called the positive commandment knocks out a lo taseh. But we also say sometimes that it doesn't apply, right? If a person, let's say, that's a positive commandment. Make kiddush Hashem.
You can see the book. So you say making kiddush much more powerful with that. Why is this one not? Why is that not?
Right. So let's say there is a rule. We don't just say all the. Right. First of all, turning a light, some might say the right, whatever right. First, right, because first of all, like we said, certain mitzvot, certain things that the asay does not have the power to overpower something that carries a very serious punishment. Anything post lashes, the asay doesn't have the power to knock out. But even so, there are rules. When do we say a positive commandment? Meaning, if I could if I could do both mitzvot. Meaning, I can't wear a linen garment. If I have a linen garment, the only way I need a blue string. Meaning, there's not an option to say I'm not going to have a blue string of dye of tchelet. There's no other way to do it. I mean, I could go ahead and somehow do my mitzvah of kiddush. I don't have to have that light to do the mitzvah of kiddush. I have to have this. I need to have the tchelet here in order for me to.
Me, I'm trying to put my head around. Okay, so the situation here where the positive overcomes the negative. Before I sat in this chair, I said, you cannot wear teeth. That's very real.
Right.
Because
Wool and linen, right? Wool and linen together is a punishment of lashes.
But it's saying bigger picture.
A sin, that's saying dissipating the Shabbat, right? If it would be a question, I have a mitzvah to do, but that mitzvah would desecrate the Shabbat, so the power of that mitzvah cannot that
Can't
positive.
die for sure in Shabbat.
Right. You can't. That mitzvah can't go ahead and right, exactly. So therefore, that's right.
Is that the lie? Is that interpreting? Yes.
How do you use it? You know, how do you say don't try to say no? How do you apply it?
One
Right,
needs to know which avirot have punishment of lashes or less. Once you know that, then you know what can be.
Already on the light, I would imagine there's punishment.
But it might be if it's desecration of Shabbat, then it's more. Then it's skila. Then it's death penalty. If we
That's
consider
only by stoning.
I understand.
Right.
I got that. The question is, okay, so if you want to say lights or I don't know, go there, but you could use something else that's Rabbanan. Say, is anything that you do on Shabbat, desecrate Shabbat, that's Rabbanan?
I mean, Muktzah Rabbanan. Muktzah Rabbanan.
Pick up a
Right. Muktzah Rabbanan.
Oh, knee, talk with my leg. Okay, so but if you want to say I have to move this wrench to make kiddush, I don't know how that's possible.
But remember, the law, the general law is if I don't. First of all, it has to be that the mitzvah and the sin are happening simultaneously. It's another rule. It's only if I move the hammer, the mitzvah's not happening yet. The kiddush is happening. The kiddush is happening in the morning. The kiddush is happening a moment later, right? It's not happening at the same time, right? If you go ahead and you move a hammer, right, and then you go ahead and you make kiddush, in order for an assay, a positive commandment to knock out a lot assay, it has to be. Mark, you hear that? It has to be happening at the same time. If I move the hammer and I do the mitzvah a moment later, the positive commandment cannot knock out the lot assay because it's not working simultaneously. If you move the hammer and then say kiddush, so it's not happening simultaneously. So therefore, that rule won't work.
Give me another example. I'm
Right. If you could do the mitzvah, see, here's a good example to knock out most cases. If the mitzvah could be done without violating without violating the sin, then we're not going to say do it. So therefore, most situations you're not going to have that you need to do. I couldn't accomplish both. I couldn't do one without the other. So therefore, most times
Driving your wife to the hospital because she's giving birth on Shabbat is at the same time because you're saving her life while you're driving. That's simultaneous. It's not time shifted.
I think it's.
yeah, but there we don't have to come. There we don't have to come on to I say it's not because I say dochalos I say because even if you're doing a sin that carries with it a high level of punishment, there because the Torah says v'chai bahem. So I want you to live by the Torah, not to die by the Torah. Only for 3 mitzvot you have to give your life. But it's not coming on to the asay dochalos. So in general, most situations in life, it's not that I couldn't accomplish. I have to do this. It's coming to get right. That they're coming together, or I can't do it without the sin. Not a lot of examples, right? So maybe we can reach right. Not too many examples that will say that say will not. There has to be. We have to think. We have to look into it. But what others? But this is the source of that law. I say dochalos I say. So now he wore his tzitzit like that, but his students, the Gemara says, were hiding from him. The students hid the corner of their garment, because his students did not want to wear techela. They did not want to wear wool on their linen garment. What were they afraid of?
Why are you saying tequila? It's the fringes, not just the blue string. It's the white strings and the blue strings.
Yeah, but let's say they had linen strings on the garment.
Can't get the blue.
But the problem is because the blue string is on wool
Oh.
only. So the blue dye is on wool. So therefore, so some want to understand his students, they hid the corner. What? Right, but the dye has to be, the trailer has to be on wool. The blue string that they wear has to be on wool. And the students, some understand the Gemara, they did not want to wear the blue string. Why not? And therefore, they hid from their rabbi. They didn't want their rabbi to see that they're not, because they held, they were concerned. The way Rashi understands, what was their concern? Because if you're going to go ahead and make a linen garment with a blue string, they were afraid maybe you'll have a night garment. A night garment. Now, a night garment technically is patur from tzitzit, right? That's how, because the Torah says ritemoto, you go ahead and you see the tzitzit, which is talking about a garment that you have to put the tzitzit on as something you could see. But if it's a night garment, you don't have to put tzitzit on a night garment. And being if you don't have to put tzitzit on a night garment, if they would put tzitzit, if they would put this blue string on the linen, they're going to go ahead and put the blue string on linen for a night garment as well. And that then there's no mitzvah of tzitzit at that time. Because there's no mitzvah of tzitzit.
So then they only have the lotus without.
They only have the lotus right? Then we violate shot there. So therefore, the students were very concerned. They were cautious. Say, you know what? We're not going to put the blue string of wool on this linen garment, even though technically we're allowed to. We're afraid because of the night situation. We'll talk more tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. Before anyone takes this in their own hands with Aseidoch, and looks like they're going to be good. Be careful about it. Yes.
That's why I struggle.
Yes. Have a great day.